Welcome to another week and another episode of Half Baked, the podcast where two Northerners debate a subject. Sometimes it's a contentious issue, sometimes it's not a contentious issue, and it's completely frivolous. Nevertheless, one of us is going to present a half-baked idea. We're going to debate it. I'm going to rebut it probably on this occasion because Phil's got an idea to present. And by the end of it, we'll decide whether we're going to fully bake the idea or whether we're going to throw it in the trash can. So that's us. Us is me, Ali, and the other us is you, Phil. Phil, how are you? Where are you? What are you wearing?
I'm glad you asked that, Alistair. So, yeah, I'm here in Southern California as usual. I'm downstairs in the pantry. I'm wearing a red shirt, which I really like having a red shirt. It's very bold. And I saw that you were going to be wearing that salmon-coloured top, so I thought let's kind of dig in with that. But yeah, there we go. Alistair, how are you? Where are you? And what are you wearing?
Thanks for asking, Phil. You do look like a white stripe. I don't know which one. One of them. I'm in the bakery. I'm in your house. I'm upstairs in California. I'm wearing bell staff. I'm not wearing anything on the bottom half. Just kind of how things go. And everything is well. And I'm really excited about another episode of Half Baked. And I'm really keen to know, because you're going to be presenting it this week, and I don't know what it is. Really keen to know what your half-baked idea is. Phil, over to you.
Well, you say you don't know what it is, Alistair, but then earlier on you said you were going to definitely rebut it because you knew what the subject was. So I think you've been hoisted by your own petard, and that. I don't know if it's strictly true. Anyway, let's get into.
I think maybe I've just lied.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. But anyway, the thing for me is I've lived here in California for over 20 years. And the thing that gets me is I'm a big fan of tea. I drink tea a lot. I started when I was very young in the UK, love tea. I don't drink coffee at all. I tasted it once when I was 7, decided I didn't like it, never went back. And but yeah, tea, massive on tea. And the thing I've experienced over here is if you're at home, go make tea, fantastic. If you go out anywhere in the entire United States, no matter where you are, you cannot get somebody to make you a tea at a coffee shop. Now, it's a coffee shop, not a tea shop, so maybe that shouldn't be a big surprise. But no matter where you go, you can't. People don't know about tea. They've never had a tea, and they don't know how to make a tea. So when you go into places like Starbucks and ask for a tea, if you ask for a coffee, now I don't do that because I don't drink coffee, but I imagine if I go into a Starbucks, they will make you a coffee. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But when you ask for a tea, a few things happen. First of all, they ask you, what type of tea? What do you mean, what type of tea? It's just tea. I just want tea. Oh, well, do you want green tea? No, that's not tea. Do you want this tea? No, that's not tea. English breakfast tea? Yes. That is tea. You don't need to call it English breakfast tea. You just need to call it tea. It's like a similar thing with the Times of London. No, it's not the Times of London. It's the Times, right? That's the name of it. You don't need to give it a different name. So, yeah, you don't get tea if you go to Starbucks. What you do get, and it's not just Starbucks, it's anywhere in America, you will get a cup of really, really, really boiling hot water, which in some ways is a good thing. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I don't want tepid water. It will be filled all the way to the very top of the cup that you're getting it in. And then there will be a tea bag. Now, they might hand you the tea bag separately because they're aware that in some way the tea bag and the water have to come together in order to make the tea. But sometimes they're not quite certain how that actually happens.
Commingling.
So say again?
A commingling.
Yeah, exactly. So they give you them. They may put the tea bag in the cup as well, but they don't. But they don't leave enough room for you to have two things. They don't give you enough room to add milk after you've mash the tea, got the tea leaves to get
Really?
the flavour into the water. They don't. It's all at the top. So you've got to pour some of the water out somewhere somehow.
You're joking me. Is this true? I mean, I don't drink tea, so
Absolutely
I've
true.
never experienced this.
This is absolutely
That's
true.
ridiculous.
But the other thing is, they don't give you any milk either. They give you things like honey. No, I don't want honey. Why would I have honey?
They give you honey.
Yeah, I don't want honey, but I do want milk. And they go, oh, well, do you want half and half? No, I don't know what half and half is. It took me about 15 years to figure out that half and half is actually half milk, half cream. No, we
Half
don't.
man, half biscuit.
We just want milk, right? And so you have to manufacture this thing yourself, this tea. And it just seems, come on, America. Now, the thing is, because they've never tested it themselves, or they don't know what it's supposed to be like, and they've got all these weird ideas that, oh, maybe you want green tea and stuff like that. No. It's a bit like, there's a bit in The Matrix where, spoiler alert, Neo says to Morpheus, oh, my eyes hurt. And Morpheus says, that's because you haven't used them ever before. And it's a similar thing with the Americans. They've never had tea, proper tea, and so they don't know how to manufacture it. So they can't put it together for you. And I think it's a missed opportunity throughout the whole of America. If they did actually get tea, then I think they would find it's an amazing thing to have. And yeah.
Huh. Right.
Now,
So,
I'll just finish off on this. There's one other thing I forgot to mention. Teaspoons. Teaspoons, the clue is in the name, they're an essential part of making tea. But they don't offer you a teaspoon. What they have is some stupid piece of wood, or they have some plastic thing. No, I need a teaspoon for two things. One, to get all the flavour out of the tea bag. To do that, you have to push the tea bag. I'm going to give you a lesson, America, on how to make tea. You have to push the tea bag against the side of the cup to push all the flavour out of the tea bag into the water. Then you also need a teaspoon in order to be able to measure how much sugar, not honey, how much sugar you're going to put into your tea, because you'll probably want a teaspoon or half teaspoon or maybe even 2 teaspoons if you're crazy, to put into your tea, because without sugar, the tea really isn't the same. So yeah, there you have it, Alistair.
Phil, we've done a number of episodes of Half Baked, and we've covered issues great and small. We've probably ran the gamut of the political spectrum. I don't think I've ever seen you as aerated as you are on this subject, which is great, because we all know that the more passionate you are about more insignificant things, the better life is, right? So those two things work perfectly.
Alistair, I don't think you can say tea is insignificant. I mean, it's a massive industry, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
I agree. I guess I'm just saying it's perhaps not as significant as the political system in the States. But I'm just saying that to pander to you, because I don't drink tea. I don't like it. I think but I get the idea, and it's kind of weird. So I remember being in downtown San Francisco with you a week or so ago, and we went to a coffee shop, and I got a coffee. Of course I did, because coffee is life, right? And you got a cup of tea, and the look on your face was utter. It looked like you were going to vomit. Now, that may have been because of the night out that we had the night before in San Francisco, when we were dancing on the plinths and whatnot. But I think it was probably because this mug that you were given was the colour of ditch water. It was, it looked pretty rank.
That's
and how you didn't just throw it back at the guy behind, in the store. You did really well to come. So I kind of get that. If someone had given me, because I love coffee, because coffee's life, as we know, a cup of coffee, which was the equivalent in terms of rankness at that, I would have been pretty irritated. Then the other thing that happened when we were in San Francisco again this weekend was, as you rightly say, we ordered breakfast, we sat down, and the guy, I think he brought you cream. And cream doesn't, even I know that. I'm not a tea drinker, but you don't put cream in tea. That's mental. So what you're saying chimes true. I feel like sometimes you are prone to hyperbole. I'm wondering if this isn't one of those occasions, because the empirical evidence that I've got is that you've had two cup of teas while you were over here outside of your own kitchen, and they seemed both completely rotten. I guess the question is, what's going on there? Why is that the case?
Yeah, and just on that point, the guy bringing the cream. Actually, he brought the cream for your coffee. He didn't bring um, I
Ah,
forget, any kind of milk-based substance to go with the tea. Because why would you bring milk with tea? No, you need milk with the tea. Otherwise, it's not tea. And you're right. In that other place, you could see the thing that was wrong is you could see through the liquid. If it's a tea, then the liquid should be a very white, dark brown, almost like a coffee color. So,
uh-huh.
so what's going on?
Yeah.
The Americans. I mean, the bastardization that is iced tea. What the fuck is that? No. When he says, "Do you want a tea?" and they say, "Oh, do you want an iced tea?" No, no, I don't want an iced tea. That shouldn't be allowed on the planet Earth. It should be destroyed and removed. Tea should be with hot water, very definitely. And I do wonder if it's partly to do with the Boston Tea Party. There's this thing in America about, oh, we beat the British in some kind of war sometime, and it was all sparked off by some kind of thing to do with tea. I don't really know that much about it, but in Boston, and so tea therefore is bad, even though it led to them getting their own independence. And yeah, they're against tea. To be fair, if they have coffee and they love coffee, maybe that's all right. But to completely blank tea in this way, and it's almost like they're doing it on purpose. Iced tea, like just like yeah,
So I'm loving this political element to it. I love the fact that it could be down to xenophobia or something like that, or whatever happened in Boston. I don't know either. I do know that the British Empire was a pretty rotten thing, and it was to a greater or lesser degree built around tea. I think on the tea clippers and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of bad stuff happened. So maybe it's a puritanical approach that the Americans have got. I doubt it.
I doubt it.
It may be because we're talking about property, and all property is theft, as Karl Marx reminded us. And Americans and communism don't really get on particularly
No,
well. So maybe there's a huge political McCarthyist element to this that we just don't know about.
that sounded like absolute nonsense to me, Alistair. But carry on.
Yeah, and it's like nonsense hasn't got a place on this podcast, has it, Phil? I'm sorry. Um, you know what? I never knew that's what a teaspoon was for. I thought a teaspoon was purely a measurement. It is a measurement.
It
I
is.
didn't realise it was for squeezing your tea bag out as well.
Clue is in the name.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel pretty thick. I just never knew it. So okay. Is there anything else that just hasn't caught on here? Because you would have thought there are 300 and odd million people in the States, I think.
That's right.
And if there isn't anyone who's producing good tea, that smacks of a bit of a gap in the market.
Yeah, it's something like 330 million, 350 million people in the United States, just a few more than are in Indonesia, as we discussed this earlier this week.
As we discussed, where they
Uh,
love tea.
something like
Um,
80 million people in Indonesia. Who would have known? Who would have guessed?
who,
Um,
who would have guessed? I wouldn't have guessed. I didn't even know what Indonesia was.
but there's
But
two other things. There's two other things I would say about this. There is this thing. One thing I also hate: the idea of going to somewhere and you having to make the thing that you want. No, I don't want to make. I don't want to go somewhere
example,
and make the
please.
thing I want. I want, like a restaurant, I want you to put together ingredients in a way that maybe I wouldn't have even thought about, or with ingredients I may not have even know about, to produce something that's amazing, amazingly good. And this idea of going to a coffee shop and having to make your own tea. No, it's similar to going to, they have salad bars here where you go and you choose the items from the salad that you're going to become. I have no clue. I have no clue what those things, component pieces, are going to come together, or how much of each I need in order to make something amazing. And
That's ridiculous.
I
I
don't,
didn't.
I
I
don't.
didn't. That's ridiculous. It's like I don't want to go to a clothes shop and be handed a ball of thread. That is
No,
ridiculous.
exactly,
What
exactly.
what is going on there? Are there any other things? So this is kind of a really good example of a great nation getting things completely wrong. I mean, but you've been here 20 odd years. Are there any other things that they just kind of can't do that they should do that
Yeah,
I'm missing that you've come
and
across?
again, a similar thing to what I was saying about Morpheus and Neo. Neo had never used his eyes before. I believe the Americans have never actually had breakfast.
Americans have never had breakfast.
They've never had
So
breakfast.
define breakfast.
Breakfast is they've never really had bacon as well. I suspect sausages, not the sausages you get in America. Bacon, which is not the bacon you get in America. A fried egg, baked Heinz baked beans, fried bread, which I suspect Americans don't even know exists, and most of the world actually don't know exists. And is there anything I missed out there? No, I think they're the essential components. Forget black pudding, which people call something else. I forget what they call it here. But not black pudding. Forget the mushrooms. Forget the tomatoes. Tomatoes. They don't belong on a breakfast. But that is a breakfast. No hash browns. You don't make a breakfast better by adding hash browns. I'm sorry. It's again another abomination.
And I
So
mean,
yeah,
all of this sounds right. I mean, I subscribe to that. You just described a great breakfast. I'm a little bit peckish now. It was so well put together. But then the Americans would laugh at our ability to make food, right? It's
they do.
like, they can't make tea, you can't make a good breakfast. We have exported those things. They've been rebuffed. And yet it feels like the English, probably with a degree of accuracy, are kind of laughed at and joked at by the Yanks for us not being able to get food right. Would I be right with that?
Yeah, my impression for many years here is that the Americans that believe English food is terrible, and there's some evidence to support that. And because it's such a difference from what they're used to here. Like when you order a sandwich or get a sandwich here, it is loaded with all sorts of things in there, right? And but
True.
in England, you can, and I personally wouldn't subscribe to this, but you can get the situation where you just have two slices of very quite thin bread with cucumber in there, and the Americans would look at that and think, "What the hell is
Yeah.
that thing?"
Yeah. And they'd have a right go.
and uh, and and there are other things where food is not done well. I totally get that. But overall, that my experience from going back over the last 20 years into England, the food is spectacular. Now, there's a thing about food where you're from. I believe that people love the food they grow up with, but they
Uh-huh.
love drinks and partners that are exotic.
Huh.
So that's the reason why in England we will drink Budweiser, or they did when I was not growing up. I wasn't drinking it at 10, but when I was in my 20s and my 30s, I would drink Budweiser at the pub, and it was an exotic drink. Similar over here, they like to drink Mexican beer. They like to drink tequila. We like to drink rum. In England, my impression is you drink a lot of European lagers, for example. Now, there's the campaign for real ale and things like that, so people do drink beers from Britain as well. But there's that idea of alcohol exotic and partners exotic.
Exotic.
People like it. And I wonder if there's a DNA thing about mixing up with somebody that's not quite like you, so the human race becomes stronger. I don't know. Um, but yeah,
Stronger
when it
and
comes,
more drunk.
say again,
Stronger and more drunk.
yeah,
So I haven't heard that theory before. But what? So if you grew up in Bradford, like a lot of friends of mine did, curry is both exotic and native. So where'd you go from
exactly.
there?
Yeah, no, but it's what you grew up with, right? So we grew up with
You grew
baked
up
beans on toast. We grew up with sausage sandwiches.
fish
We
and chips.
grew up with fish and chips, right? The Americans grew up with macaroni and cheese. So they love macaroni and cheese, whereas I would never eat macaroni and cheese. It's comfort food, right? It's what you grew up with and what you're used to, and it's fine. And I think that's great, and we all have it. Now that also makes me think that the Americans have never really had fish and chips because the way they do fish, yeah, there's fish in it, and they've got the French fry concept, but the way they batter the fish, they've got it all wrong. They make it really, really dainty, the batter, whereas actually in England, that batter is the part of the dish that you're interested in. It's
It
really
is. It is.
thick, right?
That
So
dish.
it's another thing. The Americans have never had fish and chips. So they've never had tea, they've never had breakfast, and they've never had fish and chips, even though they think they have.
Harrison Ford was in my hometown of Newcastle filming a few months ago, and he went down to North Shields to the Fish Quay and he ate fish and chips. This is Harrison Ford. He created quite a stir because everyone was taking selfies and photographs and all that, and he literally booked himself in to a fish and chip shop and had fish and chips. So I think that's pretty cool.
It must
Um,
have been a pretty high end fish and chip shop if you have to book yourself in.
he didn't have to. You know what? Technically, he probably did because he is Han Solo, right? But no, I think the idea of a high end fish and chip shop is probably a bit of a contradiction in terms.
I'm not certain Han Solo's character would make a reservation. I think he would just storm in with his guns a blazing. There wouldn't be a reservation. That's not a Han Solo thing.
These are the chips you're looking for. Excellent, Phil. This is great. This is great. I think that there feels like a huge gap in the market here, but maybe I don't know. It's been long enough for the Americans to be able to get tea. Now, they've had a couple of 100 years, and if they're not going to get it now, maybe they're just never going to get it, which is a
Yeah,
bit sad.
yeah, it is a bit sad.
Americans are really good at kind of accepting things and not accepting things completely. And if it's been vetoed for this long, maybe it's just too long in the tooth and it's never going to happen. So your idea this week, your half-baked idea was that I think distilling all of that Americans have never had tea, right?
They've never
Um,
had tea.
you know what? I think they probably. I'm not going to go along with it, and my rationale is, I think they probably have, and they have dismissed it in favour of something else. I think there's something in Americans that make them pretty kind of able to agree, disagree, regardless of the consequences, and kind of take a decision, just stick with it.
No,
Personally,
Alistair, I think you missed the
you may
point.
not. You
They've
may
never
not.
had tea because they've never had it made properly for them. So it's like saying, I don't like trousers. Well, no, because nobody's actually sewed the things together. And, well, they kept falling down. Yeah, but because you didn't have them on properly. They didn't fit you and you didn't have a belt with them. So they haven't had tea. They've had what they think is tea, but actually that's been really hot water with a tea bag in it and maybe it was green tea and maybe it had honey. No, that's not tea. If they'd actually tasted tea made by a Yorkshireman and do it with milk in it and with a little bit of sugar, then they would think, oh, this is actually quite good. And then the whole thing would change. But they're never going to get that because nobody here, unless they were a British person working in a coffee shop, would not know how to make it, and so they'll never. It's a vicious circle. They'll never get anybody knowing how to make it, so they'll never make it. So when people taste it, if they go crazy and decide to order it, they'll realize, oh no, this tastes terrible, and never order it again. It's just a vicious circle.
You're sold on this, aren't you? Without giving the game away, you are baking this idea 100%.
It's more of a. I've seen it in real life and lived it for years. It's a reality.
Should we try opening a tea shop? A proper tea, an English tea shop?
No, because they don't like tea. I think. Yeah, I don't know if there's any solution to this problem, but it is a problem. Is it a problem? No, it's the reality. Whether it's actually a problem or not, I don't know.
Phil, that was excellent. You are. I didn't realise that tea. You know what? I should have realised that tea was something you were so passionate about because you got an English kettle downstairs.
Yeah.
So you're fully invested emotionally and passionately and any other way that you could be. which I applaud because tea is utterly insignificant. That takes us to the end, I think, of another episode of Half Baked. And next week we'll be picking up another idea. Could be something frivolous, it could be something very, very important and contentious, and we'll be deciding whether we're going to fully bake it or not. It just leaves me to say thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Take care.